Hey, welcome back to the Inspire Hope podcast, where we are thinking hope for kingdom growth. There is nothing more inspiring than God being at work in people's lives through their stories. My name is Samuel, and today I have with me Jay. Jay is the executive director at Stony Lake Bible Camp. He's married to Jen, and they have three children: Caleb, Autumn, and Taryn. Jay and Jen, have been at the camp since the spring of 2019. And a little over a year ago, Jay was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer and has been given a lifespan of 5 to 7 years. But Jay still continue on the camp, trusting that God is still holds them in his perfect timing. So this is real story, real people, real faith of what God is doing in people's life. So Jay, thank you for trusting us with your story this morning. How are you doing today?
I am good. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for having me on here. So,
It's a
yeah.
pleasure to have you, Jay.
Yeah.
Jay, tell us a little bit about where you grew up, how you grew up, and the world that shaped you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I was born in, actually, I was born in Libby, Montana, which is a little tiny logging town down in the States there. And my family was obviously, we were from the States, and my dad was a pastor of a small church there. And kind of through my parents' journey, they ended up moving up to Alberta, Canada.
Hmm.
And my dad had gone to Bible college there, and he actually ended up later on teaching at the college. Um, so yeah, growing up, I was one of the one of the staff kids on Prairie Bible College campus,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
so that was actually awesome. It was a like kind of a great little neighborhood we lived in, lots of kids to play with. It was a really good environment. Definitely at that time, Prairie was much more of a legalistic college, I would say, just
Okay.
in how their outlook on things. And as a kid, I remember like life was good. Like we had a good childhood, good friends growing up, and but I don't ever remember making a commitment to Christ. It
Hmm.
was just something that we did in the home, and beyond that, it was just normal life, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, so yeah, growing up, we ended up, I think in junior high, we ended up switching. My dad's job changed, and he ended up working for managing a print shop, and the cost of Prairie at the time was really high, so we ended up switching to town school, and that was actually not a bad thing. Like Prairie was going through some tough times at that point, and their teachers were just about every year new teachers, so it was actually a good transition going to a more of a stable school, honestly.
Hmm.
And ended up though, kind of went through high school, had really good friends, but none of us were pursuing God. I guess it was just
Hmm.
uh, enjoying enjoying life for ourselves, I guess. So uh, ended up after high school, I just worked at a lumber yard, and uh, we were kind of in the. Thankfully, we never got into drugs or anything, but we were just kind of in the party crowd, and that was um, yeah, that was a time where I it was just what we did. It was just kind of normal for us, I guess. And
Hmm.
yet I remember one night going into the small town bar and and looking around at a lot of my friends' dads who were in their at the time would have been in their 40s to between 40 and 50 years old, and looking at them and knowing that they had been sitting there for the last 20 years. And it just dawned on me, and I think this was God actually that just put it in my mind, like, is that what you want someday for
Hmm.
your kids? Is uh, and I think even when I wasn't following the Lord, I can look back and just see where God was even whispering to me, just going like, what about your future? Like,
Hmm.
what about what I have in store for you ahead?
Hmm.
So at that point, it really hit me, and I just thought, no, I need to make a change here. So I ended up actually moving back down to the States, to Oregon, where my grandparents lived, and just worked down there. I just needed kind of a reset, and that was uh, yeah, that was kind of what I decided to try, and went down there. Ended up getting plugged into a little tiny Baptist church that was down there, and I think there was like maybe 30 people in the church, but the pastor was a guy named Don, and he was 70 years old, but he acted like he was 20 energy wise. He was just on fire for the Lord, and half the people in the church were people that he had actually helped off the streets and brought into the church, and they were still struggling with drugs and alcohol and everything, but it was real. It was what I think the Bible describes when we look at a real church, right? So that was the first time I felt like I actually saw a church that was real, and it's messy, but it was something that I could identify with, I guess, and go, this is real people needing Jesus, right? So I was there for about a year and a half, and then ended up just moving back up to Canada. Part of it was just I didn't have any real close friends down in the States, so I think it was just kind of a desire to be back up where I knew more people my age. So I moved back to Alberta, got connected with the church back in Three Hills, and they had like an assistant pastor there, a guy named Kent, that really took me under his wing and started to just had kind of a history like mine, and was willing to just to speak truth to me on where I was messing up, and just be honest with me. So shortly after moving back, I actually ended up giving my heart to the Lord. Would have been like early 2021, something like that, and got baptized. And shortly after that, one of my friends growing up, his dad was the camp director at Blue Rana Wilderness Camp, which is in the Rocky Mountains in Alberta there. And he knew my story and reached out and just said, "Hey, I need male staff for the spring and summer. Are you interested?" So I ended up going out to camp, and it was a small staff team. I think there was 8 of us. And again, it was just stepping into this world where the director was, a solid Christian man who just modeled servant leadership.
Yeah.
And the people that I worked with as well, it was the first time I'd actually experienced people that knew how to have fun without involving a substance, right? It was like just real genuine fun that that was good. So yeah, I really started growing there in my walk with the Lord, and yeah, that was when I feel like my walk with the Lord really became my own, and it was or my own relationship with God, I guess, is seeing my need for putting your faith to work, I guess. So yeah.
So you were the director at that time. You were the male leader, and you
Yeah.
signed up to go there. And did you know you were going to be? Is that the same camp where you are the director now?
No, so that was a different camp. So so it was a camp that like I said, one of my friends is a couple of my friends actually there. It was their dad that directed it, and that was in Alberta. And so I actually ended up meeting my wife at that camp as well. And Jen and I met that summer. It was not love at first sight, but it was. But I was the troubled kid coming to get fixed, and which was partially true. But no, we ended up just over the summer. It's a small staff team, so you end up getting to know each other well, and we started dating kind of near the end of summer, and then the next summer we were back out at camp again, and then we ended up getting married actually in 2006. And from 2006, it was like we both had, it was actually Jordan Green that you had on here that did our wedding for us, and
Nice.
and so he really kind of spoke over us that ministry was in our future. It was like this, he was like, he knew Jen's heart for ministry, and that was one of the first things he asked me. He was like, is your heart to serve God? Because that's what Jen needs in her life. And so yeah, we always had ministry on our minds, but it was basically, like I said, we got married, and we just really got plugged into our church. We were in Three Hills at the time, and got plugged into our church there. I started a carpentry apprenticeship for a company in town, and went through and got my journeyman certificate, and basically was working as a as a carpenter there, and we
Mm-hmm.
had our son in 2009, and then our other two, kind of, there were 2 years between, so had our other two in Three Hills as well. And but yeah, just got really plugged into our church and started like a small group that we ran, and that was an awesome ministry, just doing life with people uh, and walking with them. I joined our church's leadership team and was on the board there. Our church went through good times and challenging times, both, but you learn through both things, right?
Yeah.
And but yeah, kind of, it would have been in 2016, I think it was, that ministry was still on our hearts, but we were kind of looking just locally, because we watched too many friends with infant babies that tried stepping into ministry, like camp ministry, and it just ended up kind of undoing them, because
Mm-hmm.
camp is so intense that if I'm the director of a camp, my focus is there in the summers or spring and summer really, and meanwhile your spouse is left at home with the baby, and you're trying to essentially you're leaving your family to do ministry, right? And it's we
Mm-hmm.
just saw that not work well for friends that were close to us. So
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, about 2016 I really started feeling like God was putting ministry back on my heart, and there was just a lot. Yeah, like I loved what I was doing work wise, but that started
Mm-hmm.
to change, where God really started putting like, hey, there's something more for you now. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, so I started praying about that. I did not tell Jen about it. I just started praying about it. And after about 6 months of just like really praying through it,
Mm-hmm.
Jen and I were the one day we're chatting, and she said, I really feel like God is putting ministry on my heart. And I said, okay,
She
that's
said that.
she did, yeah. And I said, okay, well, that's interesting. When did you start feeling that way?
Mm-hmm.
And it ended up about 6 months before she started feeling the same way. Uh, but it was one of those things where we were both just searching our own hearts, going like,
Mm-hmm.
is this what God wants, or is this just that I
Yeah.
want to change
Yeah.
for the sake of change, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
once we discovered that we both had the same timeline, we're like, okay, this is
That's a
God's
confirmation.
involved here, and this is
Yes.
so that was good, scary but good at the same time, because I mean the job I had was very very stable job.
Mm-hmm.
You had a like company vehicle, and they paid for all your benefits, and it was paid very well. And so I mean it was one of these situations where it was kind of like, man, like we're comfortable, life is easy. It's why would we leave, really, is what it came down to. But it was
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
God's calling us, and
Yeah.
so we started praying together about that. We kind of included our small group into praying for us as well, and just said, this is what we're feeling, we're not sure what this looks like, but would you pray for us in this too? So
Yeah.
basically we went into it going, we don't know what God has for us, but uh, we're open to, if it's overseas, we'll go overseas. If it's in Canada, we'll stay in Canada, like whatever he has for us. So
Mm-hmm.
started praying through that. Ended up like we both had a lot of connections with One Hope Canada, which used to be CSSM. Uh, and so basically they run camps. And so we kind of got reconnected with people that we knew through camps, and
Mm-hmm.
decided in 20, I think it was 2017. 2017, we decided that it was time to just try volunteer at camp and see how it went for about a month. And so I took a month off work, and we went as a family to Ranger Lake Bible Camp, and ended up Greg, the director there, I talked to him, and he was like, yeah, absolutely, come out and bring your family. And went out, spent the month, and honestly we went out of that summer going, man, like we feel like we're ready for this. Like we're
Mm-hmm.
like ready for ministry now with our kids, because that was a big thing, is we didn't want to have this be something where our kids would get near the end of or step into ministry with us, and end up hating it, right? It's like we wanted it to be
Mm-hmm.
something where God was calling all of us. So we started kind of after that, we started talking to the kids just about, hey, like we're not sure what it is exactly, but we feel like God's opening these doors. We wanted them praying about it too, and so we got involved with just talking to some of the leaders of One Hope Canada, and they kind of started giving us different options that were available. And I think at first Jen was thinking that I would want like a maintenance role, and then I really felt like God was wanting me like more in a leadership role, and so we started just looking at like director roles and everything too. And so,
Mm-hmm.
uh, yeah, basically the field director in Saskatchewan here, he and I had talked a little bit. I had met him at Ranger Lake Bible Camp, and he reached out the one day and said, "Hey, there's a camp that needs a director, and I would like you to be the guy that does this." And so we ended up kind of looking at the camp. We had seen the camp on the list, but the timeline when they wanted somebody didn't work with us, so we didn't even look into it. But then their
Mm-hmm.
timeline changed, and we came out to the camp and saw the camp and met the board, and the board actually ended up the weekend that we came out, the board actually ended up offering us the job, and I kind of tapped the brakes and said, "Okay, give us a month to pray about this because we need
Mm-hmm.
to."
Mm-hmm.
It was 8 hours from Three Hills, so I wanted to make sure that it was the right move, and so we fasted and prayed about it for a month, and just had our friends that were close to us just kind of asked them, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And basically, it was just confirmation all around from
Yeah.
everybody that was in our tight circle there, and uh, so yeah, we made the decision that yeah, we'll come. And so I started in the spring of 2019, and then Jen and the kids came. I think it was end of April I came, and then Jen and the kids came once school was done at the end of June, which I wouldn't recommend for people. That's not easy when you have young kids. And my wife, my hat is off to my wife because that was a lot on her.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
if we do it that way again, but but
Lesson
that's
learned.
what yeah, exactly. It's so, but no, it was good. And I mean, my hats off to my wife for when Jen and the kids moved out here, we didn't even have a place to live yet.
Mm.
Like we in the summer there's a spot for us to live in the camp, but in the winter there isn't. So
Yeah.
uh, I think shortly after Jen and the kids came, we did find a spot uh, that we were able to move into. But in the meantime, we had our stuff stored in a few people's places, and so that was kind of crazy. My wife does not do well with moving, so that was a lot on her. So
It
I
was tough.
appreciate I
Yeah.
appreciate her ability to hang tight in that time. Uh, but yeah, I think it was yeah, and there was challenges in that. Like there was the couple that we were taking over from had been at the camp for 40 years, and
Mm.
uh, had done an amazing job of building the camp up and running it. And so no no negative, like nothing negative towards them in that. Like they did an amazing job there, and that was amazing to just see what they had done over the years.
Mhm. Mhm.
But it was definitely apparent that uh, that they were done, and yet they just they didn't have kids themselves, so it was very hard to let go of the
Okay.
camp
Yeah.
because really it was like their child, right? And
Mhm.
which
Mhm.
again I totally can understand, um, and yet it makes it very challenging when you're hired to basically take over the position, and you're basically the board kept this couple on when we came, and the idea was they would train us in the role, and then we would take over. Uh, and there's definitely benefits to that, but I think the longer I've been in ministry, the more I've seen that that's very challenging. Like
Mhm. Mhm.
it's not an easy thing to do, right? And so there was definitely just big challenges we had in that, and uh, yeah, basically things started coming to the point like once I was actually put in the role of executive director, they stayed on as the facility people uh, and just cared for the facility. But I think that there was this idea that they could just drive from the back seat, though, right? And
Mm.
that
Mhm. Mhm.
and that I would just comply with what was wanted. Yet we just saw a direction that the camp needed to take for the health of the staff team and everything. And so we started kind of turning the boat, and that just did not go well. Like it just did not go well that we weren't keeping everything the same as it had been for 40 years, right?
Yeah.
So, and again, I'm not downplaying anything they did. I'm just meaning it was a challenging spot for Jen and I to be in, because our younger staff team was seeing the need for change, but yeah, that was just a challenging place to be, and I think that's hard for both sides, right? And
Yeah.
so, but yeah, we ended up kind of through God intervening and working through. I mean, it ended up that in 2022 they retired, and we brought another couple on who was doing our maintenance for us, and that's been a really good fit, having a new couple in there. And but I think for Jen and I, I think what we took away from that is, and it was tough to the point where I hit burnout. Actually, in I think 2022 I hit burnout, where it was just like so much pressure that we were under, trying to please
Yeah.
a few sides, and then you had a board that was used to the camp being run one way, and then you're going, yeah, that's nothing wrong with that, but we're just seeing that God wants these doors opened. And so that was really tough on us, going through that process. Whereas I think I guess Jen and I just took away from this, though, that God strongly called us to this ministry, but he can just as strong call us away from the ministry.
Exactly.
And that doesn't mean ministry as a whole. That just means this particular ministry, it will reach a point where we've taken it as far as it can go, and somebody else will need to step in and take it where we can't. And that's okay. Like that's actually something that I think I've come to realize even more in the last year, of like, our job is not, it's like, this is not my camp, it's God's camp. And as soon as I start thinking it's mine and only I can do this, I feel like that's where we totally fail God, as believers, and essentially tell him, you can't do what I can. And I think that's where sometimes that's the struggle we saw, I guess, with or that we've seen in ministry, not just at our camp, but other ones too, where it can be really tough to just let go and be like, I will serve God faithfully while I'm here, but if he's telling me my time here is done and he's going to move me somewhere else, I need to be obedient to that too. So I guess that was something we learned through that tough time, was like, be obedient to God's voice both ways.
Jay, you're speaking of, there will be a time God will say, okay, I want you to move on to something else, or your life is not your own. I know you, like you told me, that you've been diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. And basically, doctor gave you a lifespan of 5 to 7 years. That's what doctor says. That's not what God said, right? Walk me through the journey. Walk me through the journey. Help us understand how you're dealing with that news, and how, when you hear that news, what happened when Jen heard that news, when the 3 kids heard that news. Walk us through the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So that actually was in 2024. Like, it was actually in the summer of 2024 that I was diagnosed with brain cancer. And how that came about was, we were halfway through summer. We'd had actually a crazy week at camp. There's many camp directors I've talked to where they're like, man, we've never been in that situation. But we actually had to ask a speaker to leave camp, because we had a speaker that backed out last minute, for good reason. I think there was family health stuff going on, and he had to back out. And so we were in a position where we had to find somebody last minute. I called my list of people that usually can step in, but they weren't able to make it. So we had this guy that had applied to come speak, and he had other camps down as references. And long story short, I said yes to him. He had on the list that he spoke at other One Hope Canadas. I talked to the one camp that he had been at, and I kind of got a go ahead saying he's good. Anyway, he ended up, after his second speaking session, and just with some personal conversations had in between, it became very apparent that this guy was not in a good place spiritually, and he was twisting scripture was what it came down to. Is
Okay.
he was twisting scripture, and so I had to confront him, and I took my associate with me, and we went and basically just said, look, this, like, essentially it became apparent that he had a lot he had to deal with personally, and I believe he was pursuing God, but it was just he was not ready to speak to a whole bunch of teenage kids, right? And so ended up asking him to leave, and he left. We sat our staff team down, told them, like, hey, this is what happened. And it was interesting because it was just this sigh. Sometimes we talk about, like at our camp, we talk lots about just the Holy Spirit's prompting and leading, and from a biblical standpoint. And it was interesting where there was just this sigh of relief from all the staff when we announced that this guy was, that we asked him to leave. And it was, so when we announced that, my wife was like, okay, like, all of you had a sigh of relief, like, why? And they were like, we just did not feel good with this guy speaking, and the way that he was using scripture just was grading us the wrong way, and our kids had a lot of questions about that. And so and we have, like, about 50-60% of our kids are not churched, but it was just confusing how he was sharing things. So we kind of took that as going, okay, like, this is, again, God's involved there. And so I ended up speaking for the rest of the week, or well, for some of the rest of the week, and then we had one of my kind of last minute calling guys that could come for the rest of the week, like the last 3 days, I think it was. So so we had that going on, and we had staff issues going on. It was just a crazy week. So at the end of the week, it was Friday, and we had a mom that wanted to bring her son out and his friends out to do a paintballing for his birthday. So the way that our camp is laid out, our driveway is quite long, and to get to the paintball, you've got to go down the driveway, kind of back out to get to our paintball field. So we had these Rangers, which are like it's like an oversized quad with a windshield, basically, and I was driving one of those out to the paintball field to fill up or get the paintball field ready for this group coming. And as I was going around a corner, we were also in the midst of redoing our whole septic system at the time. So I was, like, looking off to the left to where our septic system was, or where our well was, because we were redoing all of our water lines. And then I looked forward, and there's a Suburban right in front of me, and I was totally in their lane, and I ran right into him. My head put the windshield out of the Ranger, and I set off their airbags. Thankfully, they were fine. Thankfully, it was, but it was just one of those things where it was, like, just 100% my fault. And so ended up dealing with the insurance side with them. They were good. It was just like, yeah, dealt with the insurance. And about 3 hours after this event happened, my facility manager came to me, and he's like, Jay, you need to go get need to go get checked, because he's like, you put the windshield out. And I never passed out or anything, but it was just like, yeah. So after I kind of begrudgingly was like, okay, I'll go get checked. Went into the hospital. Right away, they just were like, we're going to do a CT scan just to make sure that there's no head trauma. And so I thought that was kind of extreme. So, but I'm like, whatever, like, I'll let them do their job. And so they do a CT scan, and then the doctor comes in, and he starts asking me all these really weird questions. He's like asking me if I've ever had seizures. He's asking me if I've ever like, like just odd questions that had nothing to do with the accident, right? And so after about the fourth question, I'm like, what did you see? Because this has nothing to do with the accident. And he's like, yeah, you're right. Like, there's something in your head. And he said, it looks like some sort of brain damage or something.
Hmm.
and yet it's not from this accident. And he said, but he said, it's big, whatever it is, it's large. So he said, well, back up here. And he checked me for whiplash. There was nothing there. So he basically was like, can I scan you again? And we'll put a dye in your system so we can see the scan better. And then we'll see what this is about. So I agreed to that. So they did the scan again. There was 4 doctors in there. They were looking at the scan. They couldn't figure out what it was. It looked like a tumor of some kind, but they just couldn't figure it out. So they sent the results off to Saskatoon,
Hmm.
and they had like a trauma surgeon and a neurosurgeon look at the scans. And the trauma surgeon looked at it and said, this has nothing to do with me because this is not from an accident. And the neurosurgeon looked at it and said, I want to see him like as soon as you can get him here. So all of a sudden, next thing I know, they're like, we want to send you by ambulance because we're not sure what we're dealing with. So anyway, I call my wife and I'm like, so
That is scary.
they saw something and they want to send me by ambulance to Saskatoon. And so then all of a sudden,
Hmm.
for good reason, she's concerned. My son was actually gone at the time. He was in Rosetown working for his grandparents. So he wasn't home, but my daughters were. So I mean, they all came to the hospital to bring me like a quick go bag, and
Hmm.
uh, hugged him. And I'm like, I think I'm fine. Like I feel fine. And well, they just want to do an MRI. So they took me by ambulance to Saskatoon. They did an MRI. Uh, the I think it was early the next morning. They did an MRI, and then they kind of stuck me. The RUH hospital's always jammed full, so they ended up sticking me kind of in a little alcove where the right next to where the ambulances bring people in and out, and
Hmm.
and I was there for about 3 days, but uh, they did this MRI and basically they came back saying like this is definitely they thought it was like a glioma brain tumor, and they said it's like a stage 1 or 2 glioma, and um, but they just weren't sure what to do with me. I think because it
Hmm.
was like I had no symptoms, and the only thing that they could kind of link to the tumor was that I would have double vision at times, and I just thought it was age related because I was a little bit over 40, and I just thought this is part of aging. And
Hmm.
the neurosurgeon looked at it and said, no, that's definitely because of the tumor that you're having this double vision. So um, I was there 3 days, and they ended up at the end of it just saying like, look, we're gonna keep doing scans, but because you seem fine, we're just gonna send you home. So ended up kind of the next week, I was back at camp again, and it was like basically the neurosurgeon said get lots of rest because he said if you don't get enough sleep, you could end up having a seizure. So he said get lots of sleep, and we'll just keep the scanning every 3 months. So went through the rest of camp.
Hmm.
It would have been mid-October. I had another MRI, and but by that time, I started to have some symptoms where basically I was having like really loud ringing in the ears all the time, headaches. All of a sudden, started like I never had headaches before, but all of a sudden I started getting really bad headaches where I was having to take Tylenol all the time, uh, and then double vision started getting turning to blurry vision,
Hmm.
and like to the point where I couldn't drive at times because it was so bad. So uh, so basically. Uh, the neurosurgeon ended up looking at the scan again that was done in October, and he gets looking at it. He's like, "Hey, this is all of a sudden stage 3 instead of stage
Hmm.
1 or 2."
Yeah.
So, and it's just to do with the color inside the tumor that they can tell that. So, uh, so yeah, we got a call end of October saying we're booking you for emergency surgery. November the 5th is when we can get you in, and uh, we need to get this thing out if we can, or get as much of it out as we can. So it was on the front left side of my head, and it was about the size of like an avocado was the size of it, so it was a decent sized tumor. And again, they couldn't believe I wasn't having more symptoms, but uh, I think the benefit is I'm left-handed, so they said that that's with that being the case, a lot of the my speech pattern would be on the right side instead of the left side. So they said that was actually kind of a blessing right there. And so yeah, November the 5th, this was obviously a lot for Jen and the kids because, there was just more questions than answers, right? We just didn't really know what we were dealing with. And
So, Jay,
yeah.
So sorry. I feel like we are jumping in the story. Like I want
All
you to
right.
pause a bit.
Sure.
When you're getting all these news coming at you, what was going on in your head? Like, what
Good
in
question.
your heart with God? What was going on?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, let's back up some because I think basically when we got the news that it was indeed a brain tumor,
Mm-hmm.
that was back in, like I said, I think that would have been early August or late July, early August that we kind of got that news. So, so basically at the time, the doctor or the neurosurgeon told us, like, based on what you have, we can't cure this. He said, like, this is not a curable, they can remove glioma brain tumors, but he said we can't cure the cancer. Basically, it's you do chemo and radiation, and but he said right now because it's not doing anything, we're just going to watch it and see what happens. So, but basically at that point, we asked him, like, does this affect like lifespan? Like, what does that look like? And he said, well, yes, it's. He said at the max, you're looking at 20 years, is what I was told at the time. So, so I think that was, like he said, it could be, but he said with this kind of tumor, he said it could be 2 months, it could be 2 years, like 20 years. We don't know because it depends on if it starts regrowing again. It can cause all of a sudden it can cause major issues, right? So, but I mean, the bonus is I never had any, basically I never blacked out or anything like that. So that was good. But at the time, basically Jen and I, as we were processing just together, I was like, well, I guess the weird thing is I was never actually scared. Like I was never scared of this. It was like,
So
in
why
fact,
weren't you scared when you're getting all these news? Like, you
yeah,
might have 2 months to live or 20 years. Like, we don't know. And you have 3 kids, you have
yeah,
a wife, and
yeah,
why
and
weren't you scared?
I think that so this is going to sound weird, but actually the day that I had the accident, when the doctor came in and it turned out that they had found something, I actually chuckled because I'm like, okay, that makes sense because like that spring I had definitely felt like there was like a lot of times where I was like not with it totally, like in terms
Mm-hmm.
of just being like I mean
Something is
camp is
off.
very and camp is very stressful, which is not
Mm-hmm.
and it's like it's awesome, but it's stressful, right? So it's like there was just times where it's like I'd hit a points where I was just like, man, I just feel like my head is going a million different directions and I can't uh, focus on one thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, and even that day that I'd had the accident, it was like again that day I was really feeling that way, and it was just like again I chalked it up to stress, and yet I look back and I'm like I think it was actually just the effect that the tumor had,
Okay.
putting pressure
Mm-hmm.
areas probably that there shouldn't be pressure, right? So so anyway, but yeah, I don't. I guess at the end of the day, it's like I still hold strong to like God knows the number of our days, and He holds that, and so I don't have a death wish by any means, but it's like at the same time I just believe that I could die tomorrow, I could die 60 years from now. I don't know. But and I still believe that. But I think when we were just facing the news of like, hey, this is not curable. Like we can hopefully remove it at some point if it needs to be, uh, but at this point we just watch. And so I think for us, like that was scary I think it was scary for Jen and the kids, honestly,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
than it was for me because, uh, so it did a few things. Like I guess my concern became making sure that Jen and the kids would be taken care of
If something
if
happened.
if
Yeah.
something happened, right? So thankfully we had like life insurance, or like we have that. Thankfully we've got some other things in place that just kind of help financially if I were to die. And so it's like, for me, it was like getting all that organized, though. Like I said, it was all in place, but getting it organized so that essentially, if I do die sooner than I think, Jen's not left having to sort that all out and figure
Yeah.
it out, because and we've seen that happen to close friends before, where one of them will die in an accident or something, and all of a sudden it's so much for the person left to try to just
Mm-hmm.
sort through, like, what did we have for insurance, what did we have for all this. And it's not like
Mm-hmm.
I kept Jen in the dark over any of that, but it was just, I did it, so it was like
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
wasn't worried about it because I took care of it. And so really it opened up the door for us going, okay, like, basically now I have what they call a knock box, which is like all of our important papers are in one box. And our will is updated. Like, we updated our will recently too, we had one, but we updated it just to make a few changes there. But it was like,
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff is now in one spot. And I would encourage people to do that, because it's just like, you don't think of it, but it's like, typically in the household, one person takes care of that. It could be the husband or wife, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. It's like, but usually one of us takes care of that, and you don't think of it till you need it, right? And
Yeah.
so basically with that, it's like, I also like typed out my funeral plans and everything, because in my family, it's like, I grew up in a Christian home, but my family, my younger brother is still following the Lord, but the rest of my family is actually not following the Lord
Mm-hmm.
anymore. And that actually becomes an area of tension sometimes, right? So I wanted to make sure that Jen wasn't having to fight with my family over funeral wishes or anything like that. So it's like, I typed
Mm-hmm.
all that up just so it was done. That's in the box. And it's like things like that, where it's really looking after, for me, it really became a matter of like looking after my family, even if I'm
Yeah.
gone, became more of my focus, I guess. And then my focus became to like, okay, what memories, essentially, what is my priority? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
what's important to, if I died a week from now, what's going to matter to the kids and to Jen? And so I think that's really repositioned in the last year how I spend my time. And so I still, this last year has been crazy because I've been going through radiation and chemo treatments and everything like that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's
Mm-hmm.
another part of the story, but it's like, but I've been way more intentional with like spending time with Jen and the kids. That's memories, not just everyday life, but memories that we can do. And it's got to fit within what we can afford and do. But it's like, again, God has blessed us there too, with just opening doors that just through the care of people around us too,
Yeah.
that's provided opportunities. And so, yeah.
Jay, in 2016, one of my sisters, she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and she was 36 years old, two young kids, and she lived in New Jersey, United States, and I was in Alberta. And when I got the news, as a believer, I refused to accept that I was gonna lose my best friend, my
Mm,
sister, and I was reading the book of James. James says Elijah has nothing on you, nothing like supernatural,
yeah.
superpower. He was a man just like us. And he prayed
Yeah.
and things happened. The guy prayed that it would not rain. There was no rain for 3.5 years. And he prayed there will be rain, and there was rain. Like the kid died, and Elijah prayed, and the
Mm,
kid came back to life. And I'm praying for my sister. And every time I prayed, I sense God is saying, Sammy, it's a no. It's a no. I'm
yeah.
taking her. And I refuse to. What reminded me of that story is when you said that you prep your funeral, and my sister was doing that,
Mm,
and I was like, honey, don't do it. She said, I need to do it, Sammy. I need to make sure everything is done the way I want it to be done. Here's my question
right.
for you, Jay. When you're preparing your funeral, okay, if I'm preparing my funeral, it's different than you because you got the news that, I might even die before you, but doctors give
Yeah.
you the news that, you have 2 months or you have 20 years, you don't know, but you're putting all the dots in a row. You're making sure that things are working the way you want them to go. Like I can prepare a funeral for myself and that's how I want it to be and blah blah blah, but just there. But you get the news that you might die in 2 months. So when you're preparing the funeral, you know, preparing that service with Jen in mind, with Caleb in mind, with
Hmm.
all the kids in mind, what exactly is going on in your head as you're typing
Hmm.
this out?
Yeah, so for me, it's like a big part of it is like a heavy, just like a heavy gospel focus because
Mm,
uh, I think for like for Jen and the kids, it's like I feel like they are. I like feel like they're doing amazing actually. Like it's been there's been hard things in that,
mhm,
and there's been things that we see come up still in the kids that are just fears that are there that we didn't realize were there. Uh, and like even with my daughter, like this last summer, she went on a her and my son actually went on a pack trip uh, in Alberta. Like it was like a horse pack trip, and
mhm.
they went there for a week, and it came out that her biggest concern was that something health wise might happen to me while they're gone, and
Well,
that
they're gone.
she wouldn't know about it, right? So so things like that where you kind of go, okay, like there's fears there that I just didn't even think of,
Mhm, mhm,
and yet I can't change it, but it's just it's good to be aware
mhm,
of those fears, and I guess validate the fears too, and just go like, yeah, like that's I can't promise you what my health will look like, but I'm healthy now, so we can hold on to that. And so, uh, but yeah, with preparing the funeral, it was really more a matter of going like, again, I didn't want this being a stress where Jen was having to fight with members of my family or anything over how this looks,
yeah,
but just have it be clear that this is what Jay wants and this is what he typed up, and
yeah.
so removing that angle of it, but then also. Uh, I think at the end of the day, Jen and I's focus has been like, I'll talk on the healing side a little bit here in a minute, but it's like
Mhm,
we've had essentially we've had way more ministry opportunities open up since being diagnosed with brain cancer than
mm,
before, and it's been with community members like
yeah,
in Melfort where we live. It's been with uh, members in our church. It's just been interesting how God just keeps opening doors,
mhm,
and we basically took this to face like there to social media, like we were honest on there with the journey and going through what everything and giving updates, and that was really cool just because
mhm,
we didn't realize the impact that would have, but that actually had a huge impact on people, in both believers and non-believers, right?
yeah,
And just uh and so I guess in the funerals, like I just want it being like a heavy gospel focus on like we all face death sometime, like
mhm,
that's a guarantee that all of us will, but it's like what's after that, like what,
yeah.
give thought to what, where are you going at the end of that, and I think that's where uh yeah, I just want I want it being a celebration of life, but I also want it just being like we all face this sometime, and where are you at, because
Mm,
I think that should be our focus
yeah.
in life, and we're yeah, so I think that's where my mind really went to. It was like making sure that it was not uh, like it might be the end of my physical life here on earth, but it's like that's not the end of the gospel. Like that keeps going, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah,
So Jay, how is your heart with God?
yeah. So I feel like I feel like it's actually been I feel much closer now, and I think a
Yeah.
lot of that is because uh, living with that reality. So basically, uh, November the 5th, they ended up doing the surgery. They removed. It's a surgery where they put you under.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, they took out a big chunk of my skull here,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, once they have you all opened up, then they actually wake you up, and they basically start probing areas around the tumor to see if they can safely remove it, uh, because they don't want to remove your speech center or something like that, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so they want to know where they can stop, basically. So uh, the blessing is they were able to remove actually almost all of the tumor, which
Okay.
at first they didn't think they would be able to. Um, and then like the surgery was a success, and then they send the tumor away and they get it tested, just to make sure they were right in their diagnosis, because I mean they are kind of guessing when they're doing the scans, right? And so they sent it away. I think they sent it to well, they tested in Saskatoon at their labs there, and they just had a whole bunch of red flags that kept coming up when they were testing it, and that they could not diagnose in Saskatoon. So they ended up sending it to a children's hospital in Toronto, I think it was, that has like a top of the line testing facility, and they ended up testing it, and it came back as grade 3 astrocoma brain cancer, which is basically it's a very aggressive brain cancer, and so what happens is it either grows in your brain or it can start growing in your spine. So so basically it can be very, when it becomes active, it can be very deadly very quickly if it's not caught in time, right? So they removed the tumor, and then once they got the results back from what it actually was, that changed the timeline to 5 to 7 years instead of up to 20, right? So and that's based on stats of what they see. So it's not God saying it, it's just what they're working off of what they see typically. So so that was hard to hear. Like that was and I think at that point I did start questioning, like, where, like, do I stay at camp? Do I like essentially what do we do now? And so that's, and I'll be honest, there's times where we still question that and still go like, okay, God, like, do you still want us here? Like, do you, or is there something else? But so far it's been clear that, like, no, you're still where I want you. And so we'll stay, but it's just been a matter of, like, I'm very indebted to my team, I guess, that's around me, that they have picked up the slack where I was not able to carry things. And especially this last winter, I was in Saskatoon for 6 weeks doing, like, they did the max amount of radiation that they could do after surgery. And, like, what I guess would be a month after or whatever it was, they did the max amount of radiation they could do for 6 weeks straight, and then chemo as well. And then once that was done, then I'm still on chemo now. Actually, they had me on chemo for a full year after that too. And so that has an effect too, though, because it's just physically you're just more tired, right? Like your body and mind both just get exhausted quicker. So and that's been one of my bigger struggles, is like how you go from feeling fully capable physically and mentally to hitting points in the day where it's just like, hey, I got to stop now. Like I've got to rest, and realizing that I need the help of others, I guess, is what it comes down to, which again has been, I think, good for me. It's just hard because I don't like to slow down, and I definitely, in my genes, there's definitely a workaholic gene that's in there, and I don't think, I think that it's been, I feel like God tapping the brakes for me and going, like, focus on what you need to focus on. And so I think that's been a positive, like, it's a struggle, but it's a positive too, because I feel like it makes me stop and go, okay, what matters? Like what actually will matter at the end of the day? And it's not going to be, it'll be those relationships that we build that matter, right? And so I think that's where I've learned where to slow down and where to speed up, right? And still learning it, and I think I always will. But it's like that's been, I think, a big part of it is just going, okay, we're, and I think for Jen, it's hard to think of, like, we actually, this last year, we had a family that we're fairly close to that the husband went in for hip replacement surgery, surgery was a success. The next day he had a blood clot. That was a severe one, and he's a healthy guy and ended up dying the next day from this blood clot. And their kids are about in the age range of our kids, like a little bit older, a few of them, but it's like in the age range of our kids, where seeing that, we basically just like Jen basically has just been walking with, or we've all been walking with his family and the larger church as well. But it's like, I think her seeing that, it's just like, she's like, I'm not ready for that. Like, I'm not ready for, not, it's like that fear of facing that time alone, I guess, is what it comes down to. And it's, so.
You're still in this journey. What would be a word of encouragement for people who, like, doctor might say to you, you have 2 months to live, you have 6 months to live.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk to those who are Christian and afterward to those who are not. What would be your word of encouragement or your word of advice, your word of wisdom as you're going through this journey? What would be your word of wisdom to them?
Yeah, I think for people that are like in my position of having medically having a lifespan that is going to be less, most likely. I think it's just, again, making those, like, refocusing your energy where it's like, in time where it's going to matter. And that doesn't mean quit work like that. Like, you've still got to do life. I mean, I don't want to just sit around and do nothing. So it's like, you've got to be busy, keep yourself busy in a healthy way. But I think it's really, looking where, I mean, this last year, like, I made it a priority. Like, my son loves hunting. So it's like, we went bear hunting together this spring, and he got a black bear, and my daughter actually ended up getting a black bear too. And it was just like time together doing that kind of thing. We did hunting together as a family this fall, and like, same kind of thing where it's just like that quality, making the quality time, right? And I think with your spouse, I think it's and I am far from perfect at this, I'll say, but it's making it a priority to, like, value that relationship and I guess be true to your spouse, just in terms of, like, what you're giving them and what you're like, and letting them grieve and letting them, and it's not that you have to be strong for them either. It's just a matter of, like, grieving together over what you thought you were once going to have. And we always talked about, like, Jen and I always talked about, like, things that we would do when we retire. And we had a list of, like, and we still do have that list, but it's like, all of a sudden it went from, okay, this is something that we didn't really think about until, 25 years from now, to all of a sudden going, okay, what can we do now? Like, what are those things that we can put on our list now instead of later? And again, I don't recommend people go into debt doing that either. So I'm not saying go take out a huge loan and and wreck yourself financially. I'm not meaning that. I'm just meaning, what are the things that you can put on the list now that are doable now? And honestly, I'd look at it and go, you know what, if I live another 30 years, I won't regret anything that we're doing now. So yeah, I think it's just like putting aside the North American list of what life should look like and going, okay, God, what do you want out of this? And I think putting Christ first is a huge part of that for a believer, is like, okay, God, like, how do you want to use me in this time? And I think even in this time I have, it's like, I want to see my kids serving, or see me serving, and I want them to see that I didn't waste what was left of my life just feeling bad for myself. Like, that's not what we're called to. And I think of Paul when he talks about the affliction that he has, and I know the speculation on what that could or couldn't be, but it's like, I really think that when I look at that, I don't think that God promises us physical healing all the time. I think that often when in the Bible, when it's talking about healing, it's talking about spiritual healing, really. So, and I look at Paul, and it's like his affliction God used for good. And so So yeah, and I think for a non-believer, I think in this, like we've actually encountered, like we had one acquaintance that we have that is not a believer, and they actually are going through brain cancer right now too, and um, it's just been, it was neat to be able to go meet with them and pray with them, and essentially just be like, we're praying for you, we're holding you up, um, but there's more after this life. Like
Yeah.
there's something more, and I think just like we even had a a friend of mine. He's big into like goose hunting and everything, and so this I think would have been not long after I was would have been not long after I was diagnosed that we were out goose hunting, and a friend of his who's not a believer was along, and he lost his brother to brain cancer,
Mm.
and anyway, he just couldn't believe that I had brain cancer because I was happy. Like I was
Yeah. Yeah.
and so I think for people to see that, okay, there's joy even in hard things, like there's still
Hmm.
joy, and
Yeah.
that comes from Christ, not from my own inner desire. If I relied on my inner desire, I would not be in a good place. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
so
Well,
yeah.
if I hear you, um, Jay, for myself and for anybody out there, first of all, put Christ first, family, and enjoy today as a gift. Every day that God gave us, like I have a saying that I said, every day above ground is a sign that God is not done with me yet. It's a sign that God is still has something for me. And every day for you, Jay, and for anybody who is watching or listening, is that every day above ground is God saying, "I'm not done with you yet." So, Jay, we're gonna finish today.
Mhm.
Is there one more thing you would like to add before I close?
I think it's just, yeah, like I said, just living life where keeping in mind that we don't know our time. Like we
Yeah.
God does, and we don't. So it's like fill that time. And I mean, you're gonna mess up too, but it's like turn back to God. Like
Yeah.
I love the story of David, because David messed up a whole ton in his life, and yet he had a repentant heart. And I think that's
Hmm.
where we need to be as believers, is like we when we mess up, repent and turn back to Christ. Like
Hmm.
you're so I think that's where, yeah,
Well,
keep living that way.
thank you so much, Jay. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And we have this channel so that, Jay, when people hear a story like yours, who are still in the journey and still believe that God has the perfect timing for your life, for your kids and your wife, and for each one of us, and you still staying faithful with God. And this is why we have the channel, so that when somebody else hear your story or watch your story, they can say, if God can give Jay joy, if God can give Jay peace among that in that situation, He can give that to me as well. So we have this channel so that we can encourage others who are going through a tough time, or encourage others to know that God is not done with them. So thank you so much, Jay, for being with us this morning. It was a pleasure to
Absolutely.
have you.
You bet. Thanks for having me on. So,
My pleasure. Hey, thank you so much for being with us today. If Jay's story has inspired you, encouraged you, I would encourage you to share that story with your loved one. And your story, we would love to hear. We would love to chat with you like we did with Jay. So email us at inspiredhopepodcast@gmail.com. We'll love to hear from you. And thank you for being with us. Until next time.